Alright, welcome back to the second part of the video where we're going to start programming some of the behaviour of this AI a little bit better in a more efficient way. Now you'll notice from the last time, if you run this, the update will set the destination every single frame, and I mentioned that it wasn't very efficient. So what we're going to do now is we're going to actually write a slightly more efficient way of doing this. The way we're going to do this is we're going to use coroutines. So we're going to create a coroutine. If you haven't done much about yields and coroutines, you can see in the Unity help file about how to do coroutines, but I'm just going to program it and explain as I go. So a coroutine can't return a void return type, it has to return IEnumerator. So we'll start with IEnumerator, and we're just going to call this coroutine think. And then we're gonna, you'll notice there's a little red line, it just means that we haven't returned anything yet. Now a coroutine is the only time that you're going to do something like this. It's a very, very bad idea to have a while loop inside of any of the routines that you're going to have inside of Unity if it's not a coroutine, because it'll just hang the program and it'll just continually run this instead of running anything else. But that's why this coroutine is so cool. So we've got the while true, and what we're going to do next is we're going to do the thing that we've got inside of the update. I'm just going to cut that out and paste it in here. So all it does is it gets the navmesh agent and it sets its destination to the target. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use this yield statement. So yield return new wait for seconds, and all this does is it literally waits for however long you put into this box here, and then it will return that wait and it'll yield. So it'll exit out and continue on with the rest of what Unity is doing, and when we run once this wait for seconds returns, so after 1 second, it'll return exactly back to here. It'll drop to here and then go back to the top of the while loop where it'll set the destination again. So in other words, it will wait for a second and then it'll set the destination again. Now in order to start this coroutine, we definitely don't need to start it inside of update, because otherwise it'll start a new instance every single frame. We will put it into the start. So we're just going to say start coroutine, and then you can pass it the actual coroutine. I like to use this method here, so I actually just pass the name of the coroutine, because this way if the coroutine happens to have parameters, you can use them here, and it's clever enough to sort that out and do it. So inside of start, you call this once, and one thread gets created, and this coroutine will run until the program finishes. So nice simple way of doing it. If you see, you can change this value of 1 to something smaller if you want. You've only got one agent anyway, it's not going to stress your computer too much. But you'll see when you run this program, the AI will wait a second before it changes direction, and it's almost not noticeable if you run this one. So you see it's heading to where it's supposed to go, and then I've moved it, and then it seems to turn almost immediately, but it's actually got a 1 second delay for it to do that. You can just about see it when I do it real quick. So 1 second, and then it'll do the thing that it was supposed to do. So we've got now a more efficient way of doing it, which is pretty cool. But what we want to be able to do is we want to have states. We want to have if it's a zombie, it needs to be idle, and then for some reason, usually it sees the player, or the player gets within a certain distance, or it hears the player, then it'll move to chasing it. So we know what to do for the actual chase state, but what we're going to do is we're going to add in the idle state. And the way we're going to do this is I'm just going to program it and explain as I go. So we're going to create our public enum, an enumerator. We're going to call it AI state, and we're going to give it the named states. We could use integer value and just have a 0 for idle and a 1 for chasing. But I think what we'll do is we'll do it the proper way, and we'll give them an actual named state. So I'm going to create this public enum AI state. The first state is going to be idle, and the second state is going to be chasing. What that does is it gives me a chance to create one of those states. So I'm going to say a public. I've created this type of AI state, and this will be the AI state of this game object, of this enemy. And I'm going to say public AI state equals, you'll notice it gives me some help here, so I'm going to say AI state, and we're going to make it idle. The cool thing is now that if we go back to the inspector in here, if I just check for the enemy, you'll see that we actually have the drop down, so we can see, because it's public, that it's got an ability to change the state in the inspector here, and also to observe the state of any of the enemies that you have in your scene through the inspector if you're testing and debugging. So this AI state's quite a cool way of doing things. The second awesome thing about it is that we're just going to switch states quite easily. So what we're going to do is we're just going to use the switch statement inside of this think statement. So this coroutine is running. If we type in switch and double tap the tab, it will fill out some of the details for us. I don't know if you guys ever use the double tap tab. When you do if statements or for loops or whatever, you can double tap tab and it will fill out a lot of the info for you. The cool thing about using it with a switch statement is if I type in AI state and then press enter, it actually fills out all of the info that I've had for my AI state. So it actually gives me the cases for each of the different states that were in the enumerator. If I change this afterwards, I'm going to have to add them in, but at least this is a good start. So the switch statement works this way, that we have particular cases and we have a default case. I'm going to leave the default case just now. You'll notice that the format is kind of different. It's got a colon, which you don't see often in C#. But we're going to say for the idle state, for the chasing state, we know exactly what we want to do for chasing. We want to take this and put it into here. So we want to have this happen only when it's chasing, and currently nothing happens when it's in idle. But what we want to be able to do is to be able to switch state based on some information. So we'll just test that this works, and I'll show you in action. So you'll see that the switch statement is actually working, and it's inside the async. So we have the enemy here. I'll click on the scene, and you'll notice the state is in idle and it's not doing anything, even though the target is there. When we switch the state to chasing, after a second it will actually chase, and if we switch it back to idle again, it's still got that destination. So that's a problem. It will go to wherever it was because it still had that destination set. So we need to work out a way to fix that as well. So inside of this AI state idle, we'll just fix that right now, and we'll just say that nm, so the nav mesh agent, we're going to set its destination to its current destination, so transform.position. So that way it should stop moving when the state changes to idle. You could store a base position and then it would go back to its base position. It would be easy enough to do, but this way it just basically will stop. So you'll see that the state, we almost have a working zombie where we have this guy when his when this guy's state is set to chasing, it will go towards the target, but when it's moved back to idle again, it just literally stops. Right, so let's work out what we're going to do with the next bit. So what we want to be able to do is when this target, which will be the player, gets close enough to this enemy, the enemy will begin chasing, and we'll need to then switch its state to chasing. However, we need to keep checking all the time inside of the chasing state that we're still within the range that we've set for this target, and when it's not anymore, then it needs to go back to idle. So that way we can have it that it'll move towards the player and then the player is able to run away. And this is just a really, really simple behavior that we're going to set up. So let's get down to programming this. So simplest way to do this, let's have a little think. If we go inside of the idle, we want to be able to check the distance between the player and this object. So let's just create a float, call it distance, or dist, and make that equal to, and we use vector3.distance. Vector3.distance will return the floating point value if you pass in two vectors. So we're just going to say target.position as one and transform.position for the other. So that's basically saying return the distance from the target to the current position, so the enemy's position. Now if that is less, so if the distance is less than some threshold value, and I'll hard code it just now to something like 5 units. If the distance is less than 5, then we want to be able to switch the state. So we're just going to say this object AI state, so the lowercase one, AI state equals, and we'll say AI state dot chasing. So this will switch if the distance is less than this arbitrary value here, 5, then we'll change our state to chasing. So the next time this runs, it will skip the idle state and it will go to whatever is in the chasing state. So we should probably test this, so we're going to jump back to the code, make that compile. Oh dear, I managed to forget to unplay this, so we'll just play it again. Jump back to scene view. So nothing is happening. We'll select the enemy so we can see what its state is over here. And then with the sphere, let's bring it close, and we should see that if you get within 5, it should change state. So we got pretty close before. I think 5 might be a little bit too much. And you notice its state doesn't change back, so it will always, once it's in this state, it will always be in that state. So maybe that's a behavior you want, but I think we should probably change this. So while we're in the chasing state, we can do a similar check. So it's nearly worth writing a function to do this, but because it's so few lines right now, I think we'll just basically write the same thing. So we're just going to say float distance is equal to, so we're creating another local vector, and we'll say vector3.distance, and it was target position, and it was transform.position. So okay, it's already been defined, so we can just do that. It won't interfere because it's not going to run both at the same time. It'll only do it in the specific states that it's in. So we're just going to say if the distance is greater than 5 this time, then we want to set the current AI state back to idle. AI state equals AI state idle. Okay, so we've got it switching states one and the other based on 5 now. I really don't like having these hard-coded values, so I'm actually just going to make a public variable up here. I'm just going to say public, and I'll say distance threshold, and I'll make the value a little bit bigger, so I'll make it 10. Oops, I forgot to give it a type. It's a floating point variable. So that way this value, distance threshold, this can be a bit more flexible, so that we can change it as a public variable inside of our inspector, and we'll only need to change it once. So makes sense, it is the same thing. So if I test this code now, we should be able to see this enemy jumping from one state to the other as we get closer. We should be able to get to a chasing state, and as we go farther away, it should go back into the idle state. So we've got the basic behavior going on here. Oops. Sphere. So it should move into the different states, and I'll do that every single second. So there's lots to build on in this, but what we have is a very, very simple behavior right now, and obviously the next step would be to change that to an actual zombie. You're welcome to use my first person controller as the target, and all you need to do for that is to just drag it onto the enemy target. It's also possible that for this you could hard code this to find the thing that's tagged as a player. In fact, I'll just quickly show you how to do that, because it's probably again more flexible if you do it that way. So the public transform target, what we could do, and this is a really common thing to do, is we could actually set the target inside of start. We could say target equals, and the target's a transform. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the game object with tag, and the way you do that is you do game object dot find game object, and you have to watch because there's a plural and a singular, so we want the single game object with tag, and then you give it the name of the tag, and there is a tag that exists called player. We haven't set this yet, but we will, and this will set this without us having to code anything. So game object dot find game object with tag player. It's got the red lines because, as I mentioned before, target's an actual transform, and this will return a game object. But it's really easy. You just do dot transform after it. So this will get the game object with the tag player, but it'll get its transform and stick it into target. That makes life a lot easier, because what we're able to do then is we're able to set the AI code will get target when it needs to, and we won't need to set it inside of there. That's handy because most likely you're going to be spawning enemies in, so they're not going to be able to, you're not going to be able to, when they spawn in, drag something into the Explorer. You're going to be able to find it in the tag. So the way to get this to work is you just need to make sure, right now it won't work, it won't find it, it would come up with an error, but if your target, if this is you as a player moving around as a first person controller, you select you as the player, and then you go up to where the tags are, just type untagged and click on player, and notice it's a capital P, and that's really important. It has to be capital P in order for it to match with the code that we have here for this tag. So that's basically it. So it's tagged as player, the code's compiled, and when we run this, back to seeing this is tagged as player, as you can see, and it'll behave exactly as it was. You're wandering around. As soon as you get close enough, there it goes, it starts to chase after you, and when you manage to run away far enough, it will stop moving. So you've got your basic zombie AI. Hope you've enjoyed the video, and goodbye.